Hello and welcome to this joint chat with Arthur Hicken and I. We are doing that as just a quick introduction of a couple of channels we have. It's been broadcasted to Architecting Software Quality. It's been broadcasted to Parasoft channels. So my guest here is Arthur Hicken. Hi, Arthur.
Hello, how's it going, Andrey?
It's going good. It's going good. Happy Monday.
Yeah. I don't know if you're in the middle of all this heat madness, but we've got a warm day ahead of us, let's say.
I live in Minnesota, so we count those warm days. Sometimes it's too hot, but warm is fine because we have 10,000 lakes to jump into, so that kind of helps.
Yeah. So, we're doing this live thing now. In fact, I saw my phone flash when you hit start. My phone flashed and said
Really?
You've got a broadcast going, which is cool. And we're reaching out through lots of different channels. And it's interesting because we have this LinkedIn channel now, and we have this YouTube Parasoft channel. And for those who haven't figured it out, Andrey and I both work at Parasoft, and we've worked together there for, I don't know, however long Andrey's been there, because I've been there longer, but a long time now, right?
Yes, about 9 years, I think.
Yeah, and I have my YouTube channels, obviously, at the Code Curmudgeon, and Andrey has this cool little thing that he's been doing called Architecting Software Quality, which we're using today. So, what's all that about? Like, what are you doing over there?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of people ask that. It's like, what? Andrey have a channel? So I'm inviting some professionals, some experts, and some practitioners to talk about software quality. What I see right now on YouTube, there are a lot of marketing information there, which is great. But then I honestly don't see a lot of good material for some practitioners to kind of listen and tune in, and then listen to the people and actual tips and tricks of real practitioners of what's in reality. Why is software quality such a hard thing to do? So far, we've been focusing on two things: quality and security. Safety and security are, as you know, overlap. So I had a couple of guests, and all of them were bringing their own points of view on the safety and security aspect of software quality, which has been great. And in the future, I'm planning to invite other practitioners. In my line of job, I interact with many companies. I'm a pre-sale engineer, so it just happens that I happen to being introduced to a lot of interesting people almost like on a weekly basis. So yeah, Arthur, great question, but that's what I do. And I do have a question for you. You have, your name is Arthur Hicken, but you go by Code Curmudgeon. And for the people who don't speak English that well, including myself, what is it? Sounds like Armageddon, sounds like Armageddon, or tell us more a little bit about yourself and your journey with this with the channel that you have.
This is this is the spelling challenge for people, right? Like, I find who can spell and who can't spell by throwing them curmudgeon, because it's so bloody impossible to spell. But yeah, I've been dealing with software quality and software testing issues for about 30 years now, and as you know me well, and those who follow my things know, I always have an opinion. I've got a strong opinion. Often my opinion doesn't necessarily align with the most common, most popular opinion. I think things should be a specific way. And a curmudgeon is a person who's kind of crotchety and opinionated and a little angry and frustrated. The old man that yells, "Hey kids, get off my lawn," right? Like things like that. So I just thought it was kind of a funny idea to, be the curmudgeon and get out there and say the things that sometimes need saying, like whether it's, technical debt, which is a bloody useful metaphor and a bloody terrible analogy. So, technical debt isn't something you can easily measure or manage, but as a metaphor, understanding that decisions that you make and decisions that you fail to make, and knowledge that you have and knowledge that you fail to acquire, have consequences that will come back and bite you in the butt at some point. And so that's the curmudgeon thing, is that I'm looking at what are the things that people miss, right? It's not about jumping on the latest bandwagon. It's about looking at what are we doing and challenging and assessing what we're doing to help improve what we're doing. For example, one of my YouTube videos, I start by staring at the camera and say, "Is my car trying to kill me?" And it's one of my sequence of things on AI and how does AI work and what can it really do and what are the real challenges of it. And for example, in AI, the thing I hear most frequently, and you might hear it as well, Andrey, but I hear it a lot from analysts and writers and things, is who's going to pay for the insurance when there's a car accident, and what about AI ethics and the trolley dilemma? And I'm like, right now my car can't properly find the lanes. It's not worried about who it's supposed to kill. Right? It's just not there yet. I would love that we get to the point that the car can make a choice about who it's going to kill, but we're not even close, right? Like we might have jetpacks before we have that.
Yeah, and software, I think what's interesting about software quality in general, right now software is driving our life more and more, not just the car, right, but medical systems, right, military systems, avionics, and industrial control. So like even the house right now, I'm what I did when I first moved into the house? It's not letting the cat in, it's connecting the internet so all of my smart devices can be on.
Yeah, it's that, and like when you think about working on the house, it's always about, can I get more wires? Can I get better signal? Like, am I sticking a mesh thing? I'm literally one of those guys that's got Cat 5 running everywhere because I'm doing so many high bandwidth things. But yeah, it's become important, and it's interesting because we had this discussion during our embedded summit in the a couple months ago, and it's intriguing to see, like cars, right? It used to be that we bought a car and we expected a manufacturer to, like fix basic things. Some things we knew would wear out, some things we expected them to fix, but we didn't expect anything to change over the lifetime of the car. We didn't expect the car to get any better. And if you look now at your phone, your watch, your speakers, your whatever, your camera, you would be absolutely angry if the manufacturer didn't give you improvements over the life of the product. And we're kind of reaching that point in cars, right? That we have this expectation. I had a car that was leasing, and I had it for 3 years, and over the life of that, like nothing changed, right? At the end of it, I feel like, oh, my car's way out of date. It doesn't have any of these cool new features. And there are cool new features in cars, in home security systems, in cameras, in phones. So yeah, our expectation as customers has changed, that we want something to be fresh and updated all the time. We want new software all the time. And when you get into these areas like safety and security, that kind of, dynamic change is a huge risk. So it's kind of fascinating, right?
Yeah. And right now, if you talk to even the people who produce those devices and systems, and if you look at the maturity of certain organizations, you see like a huge range. It's not like the software producers are all kind of the same. There's a factory, and factory standards are in place. There's Six Sigma. Nothing like that actually right now exists in the software community, where the construction of the software is subject to some extremely strict and well-defined processes. There's something that are coming out right now, but if you look at people who produce, let's say, just cars, and let's say sample 100 manufacturers, or however many, let's say 50 manufacturers, you will find they are all over the spectrum of quality assurance or quality assemblance of software quality, so to speak. So I think we're...
I was going to just say that, right? Like you and I have both interfaced with a lot of customers over time. And sometimes, you go to a bunch of different financial customers and you start to get nervous about where your money is. And you go to a bunch of automotive customers, you start to get nervous about, what's in my car.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I know that you and I both end up getting involved a lot in industries that are compliance oriented, that do have at least at some level, there's a strict regulation. It might not be granular to the level that we know exactly what we're supposed to do, but we know that we're supposed to do something, and we'd better do it, and we'd better demonstrate that we've done it. And that was an interesting question, I thought, for you is, when you have a standard like a 26262 that's driven even deeper by a specific coding standard like MISRA, like, does that make your life better or worse if you're the person writing the code?
Well, it's a great question. What's the definition of better or worse? It might get you a little bit of a delay in releasing your code because you have to spend more time cleaning it up and being compliant with perhaps some rules and regulations that you don't agree with. But hey, if you're building the house right now, well, I was in the process of rebuilding the house. So there are a lot of constraints and regulations that do exist, and they are costly. Like all of those regulations, okay, it has to be a certain width, it has to be a certain length, it has to be a certain depth in places. But as a person living in the house right now, it makes me feel good that the house was built according to some rules and regulations. It wasn't like built according to what's the cheapest bidder would give me. And I feel like we should approach it from the end user perspective. What do the end users feel and believe and trust, and what kind of trust they put in the system? And that should drive the programmers, the developers, that should drive their passion to make the end user trust their product. So I'm approaching it from a back end a little bit, going from the end user perspective.
I do think there's a strong argument to be made that, producing crappy products isn't satisfying at the end of the day, right? Like I'm hoping that there's some self sort of, ideal that people don't feel good about producing garbage. I know that consumers do have kind of a blind trust in products, right? We don't see consumers reacting nearly as strongly as one would expect about things like ATM attacks or the SolarWinds issues or things like that. So I do think we have a responsibility. We've somehow engendered this trust, and we need to keep it in place. But I also do think it's easy as an individual, whether you're a tester or a developer or whatever, in the process of building your software, to get hung up on the idea that this regulation is in my way, right? I'm doing this bunch of stuff to produce a component for a medical device or for a car or whatever, and then I'm doing this other stuff for the government, and I feel like this is the wrong approach. I've read a lot of different standards, just like you have, and there is some very strong common things between them, right? And it comes down to, like, plan out what you're going to build and build it according to best practices, things that other people have tried so that you don't make their mistakes, and then analyze it using common tools available today, static analysis, unit test, measure the metrics, look at the coverage, because if you never tested something, what's your expectation that it'll actually work? And will it work? Will it work under duress, which is where you get your safety and security, right? So I feel like these things, while they may feel painful, become very important. We live in a house in California. We're at the base of Mount Baldy, so we're, near one of a gazillion. You have 10,000 lakes, we have 10,000 faults, right? And we're certainly near one of them. And we've never had a really big quake on this fault since we've lived here for about 20 years. But the house is built to standards to the expected kinds of quakes in this fault. Yes, if there was an enormous one, the house would fall and everything around us would fall. But like, a 5.0 earthquake here, even a 6.0 in California doesn't cause much damage to modern structures because we build for it. At the moment of building, if you're new to the state and you've never experienced a big earthquake and you've seen these little ones, you're going, why do I have to put so many, studs in the wall? Why do they have to be so close together? But the day after the earthquake, you're thinking maybe it was a good idea.
Yep. Looking at some other houses which weren't built to the specification, right?
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like some organizations would build houses they would put all the studs up, and a guy would walk around with a hammer and hit them all and go, okay, this seems fine, right? Like, and off you'd go, rather than here's how far apart they're supposed to be, and here's what the load bearing capability of a piece of wood this size and this length is capable of handling, and all the sorts of things that go into standards, right? As opposed to, a classic like software development practice would be to, build the house, put the roof on. If it falls down, next time add a few boards and do it again.
Yeah. So so if anybody listens to us right now, hi Erica. Erica was actually listening to us and commenting. So thank you, Erica, and whoever is also listening to us.
Shirt, I guess, because she commented on our Einstein
cool
shirt.
Right? Oh, let me just stay like this. I'll make you a solo layout. So yeah. Well, it's pretty cool.
So, it has the quote about sanity, doing the same thing over again from Einstein. And yes, if we've been building software that is subject to failure or safety problems or security problems, and we don't change what we're doing, we should get the same result.
Exactly.
The funny thing is that the standards that we were just talking about are based on that same principle, which is, if we're getting good results and we build it the same way, we should get the same outcome.
Yep. Yeah. Right now, the software is just growing exponentially in complexity and connectivity. So we'll have to apply different metrics, I think, for some of it. But general rule of thumb stays, right? You have to follow some practices.
Well, and I think, we have to get more efficient. Right, because we are building much more software and it is much more complex. So we've just got to be better at it than we used to be because there's so much to manage.
Yeah, exactly. So I started this chat with you, Arthur, and talking about, okay, we'll be talking about the real practitioners with experts, and certainly we're gonna go technical and this and that. And yet we talked about houses in California, houses in Minneapolis. So I'm sure enjoying the conversation. And sure somebody's watching us, so please comment. If you have questions for Arthur or myself, please put it in the comment box, either in LinkedIn or YouTube, however you're watching it. Please register for the channels if you want to see more of a chat like that, or maybe more technical. Send us the comments of what you like to see. Subscribe to the channel, so you have to hit this bell button in order to be
hit subscribe and hit that bell so that you get the notification when we go live.
Exactly.
Right? And
so Arthur did his homework, so his phone gave him notification.
It showed, and I don't subscribe. I subscribe to a bunch of YouTube's channel. I don't hit the bell on all of them, but the ones that have useful content. And the other interesting thing to do is that Andrey and I do encounter lots of intriguing people in lots of different industries. So if there's a particular topic that you want to hear about, you should definitely let us know.
Yes, so please comment or send us an email. We'll put our contact information in comments for this video. So if you will look through LinkedIn or YouTube, in the comment section, you should see contact information for Arthur and I, and links to our channels. So you should be able to see that. All right. With that, Arthur, any final thoughts before we adjourn the session?
You talked earlier about doing this stuff on YouTube, and I do think that YouTube in some sense has become a great new place for people to learn things, and I go there myself. So I love that you're adding quality technical content to something that we've often thought of as an entertainment only medium. So it's kind of cool.
Thank you, Arthur. And I think that you have a pretty cool channel called IoT Hall of Shame or something, right? So you definitely, I read that sometime, and then just when the news come out, you're probably the channel I'm looking at to sort of see what's going on there, because you assemble that information in a very nice way.
Today's latest hack, I saw it like right before we started. I haven't had a chance to add it to the Hall of Shame yet, but another billboard hack happened. So it'll be something that I'll be putting something out about later today.
All right. Very cool. All right. So thank you, everybody who were able to listen to us. And with that, we are going to say bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody.